Next up in our AI track, we have a Fireside Chat. How AI is shaking up game development in 2024. So for that, I would like to welcome to the stage Chapple from Steel Media, and from Ludo.ai, Tom Pigott. Tom Pigott.
Hey everyone, how are we all doing? Thanks so much for attending the Fireside Chat. We're going to talk about how AI is shaking up game development in 2024. We'll discuss practical applications of AI tools in game production and how studios can use them right now. So I'm Chapple, the head of content at pocketgamer.biz, and with me today I've got the Ludo.ai founder and CEO Tom Pigott. And you've been working in the space for many years, as in the AI space, I think for many years. But yeah, if you could just introduce yourself and what you're up to.
Thanks for being here, everyone. My name is Tom Pigott, founder of Ludo.ai. I've been in the games industry for about 6 years, and we founded Ludo 4 years ago, more out of necessity than otherwise. We were in game content creation in both the VR space and in mobile gaming. And like a lot of studios, we're having our challenges, and that's when I actually met my co-founder, who is really the technical brains behind Ludo and has a PhD in AI. And we began to think about what models were available that could be utilized both for ourselves and ultimately what we developed for game studios to give an advantage when developing the games as they exist now.
So you're actually in kind of the trenches of development, and this is the tool that you kind of came up with to be super useful for that.
Absolutely. As I said, yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, and we were challenged and struggling, and we'll talk about, the platform that we've developed.
So I guess my first question really is like, how has the world of AI changed over the last few years, kind of since you founded Ludo, and then how has that impacted your company and the work?
I think, well, certainly when we first launched our platform in January of 21, we had founded the company in a year prior in 2020. The models that were available were fairly limited in terms of open source models. There was GPT-2, and so even the image generating models were not that significant or not that advanced at that point. So I think absolutely the biggest change from what we said is when we used to come to conferences like this, it was explaining what AI was going to be, and will it have an impact, which we believe it did, and what would be the practical abilities to use it. Since, obviously, with OpenAI and ChatGPT coming out, a lot of that has gone from doubt and skepticism to, what impact will this have either for my job or the industry? And so a lot of that, let's call it cajoling or educational aspect of explaining AI has been taken care of, and now it's really, this is clearly going to be here to stay, broadly speaking, not just in gaming, but across what we believe many industries. And so how do we get smart about it?
So it's not just the latest buzzword, like metaverse or whatever.
Yeah, we don't believe so. No, we bet early on it and built a team of AI experts, and we just happen to be focused on gaming, and that's sort of how we differentiate ourselves, is that we are an AI company first that has a deep vertical focus on game development problems and challenges.
So where is AI, and kind of specifically generative AI, already used in production? And where do you think it's proving most useful right now? Obviously, AI has always been used by developers, but in development specifically.
Well, we started when we built the platform at the whole entire beginning of the game creative process, right? And that is, I want to start a game, maybe I have an idea or kernel of an idea, or I want to take an existing game and make a variation of it. So we, with the models that we originally trained, were more on the ideation aspect of it, which is a concept creation, ideation, the brainstorming, game storming phase. That was probably the lowest hanging fruit that we could utilize, and was also a real need. The majority of our customers are in the mobile, in PC space, and so they're having to create, especially in the casual and hyper-casual, back several years ago, having to create a great number of variations and prototypes rapidly. So that was a pretty straightforward opportunity for us to provide a tool that did that. And then subsequently, we got into game design, documents, image generation as the tools became more robust and available for us to train on.
So what are the benefits of kind of using those tools, using that kind of tool versus not using it? Like, why do it?
What are the benefits?
Versus not using it.
I guess we look at it from a perspective, and having started a number of companies in my career, including back in the early days of the internet in the mid '90s. We just think that maybe, unlike, as you said, some other buzzwords, which I can't predict how well they will do or not, but AI is here impacting and cutting across multiple industries already. It's been around for a long time, but as you said, I think it's been a combination really in the past several years of the data that's become available, the computational processing that has become available, and the robustness of the models that are open source primarily that have been released, that has allowed this sort of convergence of different companies that can work on it and apply it now. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, from a development and game developer standpoint, it's here and getting stronger every day in terms of the models and robust, whether you like it or not. And so we just sort of look at it from a practical standpoint. It's like sort of, I'm being somewhat facetious, but sort of like ignoring the internet. I mean, you can, but when it came about in the 90s, but eventually, there's going to be an impact to you. And so that's what we always, when we speak with game studios who have questions about, hey, where can I apply this? Or we say start small and start with, obvious challenges you're having, and just get smart on it. Try a bunch of different tools, try a bunch of different models, and see how it works.
So is it about, you're constantly having to test these tools and make sure it fits into your, I guess, production pipeline, rather than you can't just plug it in and it works?
Correct. Yeah, definitely not. No, it's human plus AI, as we say, in terms of the creative process. It's like, think of the impact of the personal computer when that was being widely propagated. It allows you to do your job in many ways a lot more quickly, a lot more powerfully, a lot more options. But did it take away, your particular job? Most of the time, certainly not. Other jobs sort of migrated towards something that they could use more effectively. But when spreadsheets came around, it just supercharged a lot of the work. And that's where we think these tools, when they're finely tuned, and they'll always keep improving because more and more models are coming out literally every month. The pace is that fast. So we're trying to provide a platform, a trusted platform, where you don't have to figure out which is the best. You can come and you also don't have to bring in an AI team to your studio, which is a big concern, right? If you don't have the expertise in-house, how do you keep up? And so I think you have to go under the presumption that at the end of the day, AI tools will be very widespread and commonplace, and that everyone will have access to the tools and the models themselves. So then what? Then what do you do, and how do you build a company out of that?
You were mentioning, things are moving so fast. So how do you reliably put these tools into production when there could be a major development within 3 months, and then you kind of have to change how you do things?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, for us, we're the ones who are actually trying to build the tools, let alone from game studios' perspective. But for us, we're in constant touch with the different developers of the LLMs and the different models. And what we're trying to do and provide for game studios is to provide an integrated platform where, instead of going to 7 different sites with different various AI tools, you have one platform that offers an integrated approach in terms of how you develop your game design document, your research, your marketing, image generation, video generation, et cetera. As a studio, though, yeah, you're not going to ever be on top of it. The pace of research and the papers that are being produced and the models are being, it's just accelerating, actually. My co-founder has said he's been doing this for 15 years, not in gaming, but in AI research and AI applications. He says he's never seen the pace of which papers are being produced on breakthroughs around the world.
I guess it's just so much significant investment going on in the space that there's always something new to learn for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wanted to go a bit deeper on so you were talking a bit about ideation and some of the stuff that you do. Like, can you explain that a bit more? Like how that works actually for developers? Like, what's the process for them?
Sure. So we like to say, start with Ludo. If you're a game developer, and most, to be clear, we presume that a lot of AAA studios, larger studios, already have in-house teams and have the bandwidth to be able to hire even their own machine learning specialists. So our focus has really been always on the indie gamers, indie developers, studios from a solo dev to all the way up to 50 people, and so if they have a new idea or they want to start something, maybe it's in a new genre, we like to think you start with Ludo, you're able to come and do some market research, understand some of the trends. All of this is tuned with our AI models. Understand, even some of the popular mechanics or things that are trending, and be able to ideate from that, create a number of different variations, which will lead to beginning to flesh out some of your design documents. And Ludo can help with gaps in that, and in the future we'll be able to actually provide proactive ideas for how you would make it more successful. And then generating, all the things we've seen in terms of images, basic video, and ultimately to be able to have something that gets you to production. So we're trying to cover all aspects of pre-production, which we believe, certainly given this environment, difficult environment that we're in, you just can't throw out random prototypes as easily as you could, say, 3 years ago. You've got to think through and really plan it, especially if you're working with publishers. So it's more important than ever, I think, to have a very solid planning process in place.
And so we're talking about like kind of pre-production, but are there any other areas that you think AI and generative AI tools are going to be particularly useful for developers?
Absolutely. So I think if we're talking about what's coming or what?
Okay, firstly, what's now, and then what's coming.
Well, certainly, and you've heard some of the other speakers today, AI tools are absolutely being used in post-launch monetization, optimization. That's not an area we focus on, but there's pretty much all aspects of. I mean, the only thing we say that AI tools literally, I don't think I'm going to be disputed here, but can do for you. It can't generate the game by itself, and that's a frequent, almost daily question we get is, hey, I thought I could generate this AI, by pushing a button and you'd have an AI-generated game. At some point, will there be an AI ground-up game engine built? Quite possibly in the years to come, which would change things dramatically, and the types of games that would be able to be created would be, probably unlike anything we have now. So it'll be interesting.
I think wasn't there was it Google or something that was shown that they had like it was creating like a simple game. Yep. From generative AI sort of assets, I guess. So,
and there's been platformers that have been trained on that, and that's a good example and a good question of you can have a very, very, very narrow use case of doing something like that, but let's call it a general AI game engine is not there yet. The physics involved is a super big challenge. I think people are absolutely working on it, maybe some stealth startups and probably some of the big players, but yeah.
I remember writing about that like over 10 years ago when I was at Develop. There's an AI called Angelina that was creating platformer levels. It was fascinating. So you kind of touched upon this a minute ago, but what kind of companies do you think will start using these tools? Is it large publishers, small startups, mid-size, everyone? Is it more advantageous to some than others?
Well, I think your last question is the one that for us makes sense. Is it more advantageous? Again, given how challenging the current environment is to actually successfully build and launch a game and get it, heard above the noise. I think indie studios or smaller companies who embrace these types of tools will allow, I think it was even this previous speaker mentioned, it democratizes things a bit. It levels the playing field in a sense because without having to create your own in-house models, your own in-house types of tools, you get the power and the robustness of a lot of what AAA studios maybe have always had. And so I do think that with user-generated content, people embracing tools that allow them to turbocharge their whole pre-production, ultimately production process, they'll be the first to benefit. You just have to presume the larger studios have that in-house capability, but it's also, as everyone says, it's harder to turn, the battleship around in some of those ones in terms of the cultural mindset. Indies have always been the first to embrace, new technologies and have been more nimble in that regard.
I guess it would be remiss if we didn't talk about, some of the legal aspects of using generative AI. So do you think it's challenging to use for studios due to those potential copyright infringements? How can companies watch out for that with the tools that they use?
Yeah, and I think everyone has their own, perspective and opinion on it. I mean, for us, clearly the technology has outraced the legal framework, or the legal framework has not had a chance to come up. We follow it closely, the bigger players, the bigger issues, but whether in the EU or in the US or elsewhere, and we're taking open source large language models. In terms of the copyright issues, all of that just remains to see how that's going to be played out. But it's even speaking with some lawyers recently, it's just a gray area that ultimately they'll have some impact. But I think I would highly doubt that this would put everything back in the bag, so to speak, in terms of so many companies, and they'll just reach some type of compromise. But I mean, we've trained on millions of different data points, and to say one of that piece of data is a direct, copy of something that's out there. I think it's challenging.
Yeah, I think there's a few things moving legally in that regard. I think there's a court case in the US with George R.R. Martin about OpenAI's use of, I guess, his books.
Characters and books, yeah.
And in the EU, there's, I think there was just new, can't remember what it was, regulations or a guidance or something around AI, but it was more focused on the apocalyptic aspects with a tiny bit about generative.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's our place here to delve into the legal aspects of all of it.
But definitely fascinating. So does anyone have any questions? We've got a couple minutes. Yeah, we got a question. I really can't see anybody.
Lights up there are pretty blinding. Hi there. Very interesting. That's great. Thanks, Tom. Sorry, can you give us a little more insight? You mentioned that you're just on what large language models that you're using. So you said that you use it, and you mentioned you open source. What model does Ludo use?
Well, we have a number of different ones. I would probably have my CTO and co-founder come up or talk to you later if you want the specifics on it. But most of the popular large language models for both image generation, video generation, and text generations are what we've started with. And then we fine-tuned on some of our own models, which are much smaller in terms of parameters.
Gotcha. Great. Thanks.
One thing I would say in terms of where things are going to be going in areas we're working on, but they're certainly everyone's working on them as well. I think the AI tools will become much more proactive in terms of like an assistant. I talk about Copilot and they talk about various assistants, and I think once that gets figured out, that'll be very powerful and transformational in terms of. In our own case, if you came to the platform, to the Ludo platform, and it says, hey, what can I help you work on today, and have you considered aspects of this, or based on the training, you might want to supplement with certain concepts, mechanics, et cetera. So I think the proactive aspect of these tools will be extremely powerful. And then the other obvious one will be video, and Sora has already been come out with, OpenAI with Sora. But when it gets to the point where you're going to be able to maybe test various ad creatives, do various playables, potentially that's going to be super impactful in terms of creating either image to video, video to video, or text to video. If you could generate 30 different short videos in a matter of minutes, that changes things quite a bit.
Yeah, like we said, like the pace of the technology and what's possible is kind of crazy. I think that might be it. We've got another question.
Yeah, I've got a question. So you kind of touched on it there. The way I see it is that Ludo can get a studio in a pre-production process straight through to basically MVP. And that's with imagery, video, and pretty much everything you need, game descriptors, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can do that, can you do that with your adverts? Because I do a lot of work in ad tech. Could you see games developers being able to use Ludo to create different creatives with Ludo's platform?
Yeah, great question. I guess short answer is yes, I think ultimately, and I think that is a big challenge to ad tech. There is a great opportunity for innovation, right? Because of right now, as for playable ads or other game ads, it's a very manual process. In creating those variations, whether it's brand specific or variations of a existing game. And so we would expect that once the AI tools are stable and trained, particularly on the video, you could get to a scenario where you could create a number of playables to test out to see, from a prototype standpoint, or which ads work best. So that's a big scenario that we're looking at. But yeah, ad tech is for games, that's a huge area of opportunity. Definitely. Good question.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
You.
Please give a round of applause.
Thank you.